Welcome back, builders. This week we're taking a look at Middle Age Jotunheim Iron Woods. If you thought that Niflheim was pretty good in early age, but didn't like some of the drawbacks that they had, oh boy, do I have a nation for you. Jotunheim is a land of bitter winters and cool summers. It is the home of the Jotuns, a race of giants descended from the Rimtarsar. Frost giants of godlike powers sprung from glacial ice at the dawn of time. These primordial giants were hunted and slain by the god of thunder. Thunder and lightning still recognize their old quarry, and the Jotuns greatly fear the wielders of lightning bolts. Jotun are stronger and tougher than other giant races, and they are almost impervious to the cold of winter. Jotunheim has no king and is ruled by several jarls who rarely join forces. In the heart of Jotunheim lies an ancient forest of iron and ice. Here lives the Jarlvidja Geijas from an earlier era, endowed with unequaled sorcerous power. They are served by the Vetir, who are small, wicked goblins of the Jotun woodlands. The Vetir rarely venture outside the woodlands, but do join the armies of Jotunheim when the Geijas bid them to. The people of Jotunheim prefer to live in cold provinces. For national features, our race is cold resistant and we prefer cold scales of +2. Our military is giant infantry, Vetir, and wolf riders. For magic, we are pretty good at water, pretty good at blood, okay at death, glamour, astral, and nature. That's a great spread, and we have a really good gambit of just one path mages all the way up to 3 or maybe even 4 mages if you got really lucky. So quite a good magical nation that is not too hamstrung by cap only things. Our priests are average. We can recruit priest level 2s. For scales and blesses, we have a cold limit of +1. We build giant forts, and our forts reduce cold scale deaths by 1 step. So if you get to cold 3 or colder, you start getting some pop kill. This will reduce that as if a cold 3 was a cold 2, for example. Overall, pretty good little mix here. Giant troops are always pretty good, and we have decent ones, and we have good magic to back them up. For sites, we have the Iron Woods. The Iron Woods allow us to get some of our cap-only things. Also provides us with 2 death gems, an astral, and a glamour gem. And we have Thrimseum, which gets us some more of our cap-only things and a water gem. Increases recruitment limit of +1. I believe that's for... I'm not sure who that's exactly for. That may come into effect when one of our national spells is up. We will look at that when we get there. Units and sacreds. We have quite a wide roster. It does suffer a little bit from repeats, but there are places for various units here. Starting off with some of our Vetri allies, we have the Veti Archer, can be recruited in all forests along with our forts. Now, unfortunately, let me just start off. It's a short bow. It's a short bow in middle age. So right there, you're already like, oh, I don't know, Babel. However, it's dirt cheap. Gold is 6, resources are 4, recruitment is 8. It is a size 2. These are, remember, like goblin-like creatures. They have cold resistance, they are stealthy, and they have forest survival. They do have a leather cap and leather armor. That's whatever it is. I guess if you get in a short bow duel, you'll probably win because of that. But against bigger, better archers, you probably won't do too good. However, you can have a lot of these guys. And if you can get in range of enemy archers, yes, a crossbow bolt is going to kill one of these guys. But in the 2 or 3 rounds that he's reloading, the other ones are going to be just pummeling those enemy crossbows. This is actually all right. Also, because they're size 2, they are relatively easy to buff. So if you somehow got air or earth, some extra strength, some extra accuracy would be nice. They're just 10 precision. We do have native nature access. I don't know how good the poison arrows are because we're going to really struggle to punch through most armor. But if you can, that's pretty decent. If we had access to fire, or you could get it, fire arrows would be pretty good here. It's relatively easy to buff since you can buff 5 of them in a square. Overall, not the best thing ever, but they have a couple things going for them that at least brings them up to relatively obscure but usable. Next, we have the Vetri. These are are same chassis, so they've got the cold, the stealth, the force resist. They're the size 2, slightly below human stats, but a size 2 is very useful when you're on a giant nation. Most of our giants are going to be size 6, so a size 2 melee option lets us put 2 extras in a square. And they don't have the worst attack ever. Not great, but for nothing else, they're like ablative armor for your giants. These guys will take some of the attacks, saving your giant from getting hit. In addition, it doesn't matter if you hit or not, you can still help with getting harassment penalties on units, lowering their defense. And that is a huge, huge help, actually. And things that could normally bog down your giants, like let's just say Swarm. Yeah, your giant's going to kill one bug every round, but if he puts 50 bugs in front of you, you're going to be there for a long time hitting bugs. A few of these guys mixed in would help clear those bugs out and get your giants moving into more appropriate targets. I like these guys a lot because they also fit into squares nicely. If you do get any kind of AoE buffs up and running, you can be buffing 3 units rather than just 1 at a time, making that buffing value much higher. I like these guys quite a bit. Now, they will die in droves. Like I said, think about these guys as ablative armor for your giants more than anything else, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You will probably need a lot of them. They are dirt cheap, and they also can be recruited in all forests. So you don't have to spend your fort time on these if you don't want to. Quite a nice bonus there. Next up, we have Wolf Riders. Again, can be recruited in all forests. And again, I really actually like these guys. 15 gold, 6 resources, 11 recruitment points. They come in with cold resistance, snow move, stealthy, forest survival, pillager, and skilled rider. So right off the bat, you could make some groups of these. The leader who would probably lead them is this guy. He leads 50 and he does have pillager. So you could make some raiding parties that are going to run out. They have snow move, they have map move of 20, so they're relatively mobile. You could run out and do some pillaging on an enemy's land who you're not thinking that you're going to be able to hold in the near future, but you want to deal some damage to them. Remember, they're also stealthy and have snow move, so you can zip around pretty well with these guys and disappear when anything shows up, because they're not going to beat a dedicated force, right? If you were have them with an army, especially an army of, let's say, some giants, these guys are pretty good at hold and attack rear. 15 defense. They have a spear, which isn't the best thing ever. However, most mages in the back line are not wearing full plate and have a tower shield or a kite shield. They're probably wearing robes, or maybe if they're lucky, they have some leather armor or something. So a few of these guys on hold and attack rear, while your wall of giants is holding the main line, could end a battle very quickly. They are size 3 because the wolf is size 3 that they're riding. So you can have 3 of them in a square. That's pretty good. That can be enough guys to just swarm some bodyguards. Even if they have some spearmen, or let's just say like a heavy, quote unquote, heavy infantry, a couple of those like the Indies like to have guarding their leaders. If you had 20 of these guys, 15 of these guys, you could probably handle that and get a kill. If nothing else, they're also good distractions. I like these guys quite a bit, actually. Having an option to do a hold and attack rear on a nation that otherwise doesn't have many things that are fast or cavalry or flying is pretty nice. That's a really good tool to have in your toolbox. And the fact that they have really good map move, you could get them where you need them. People won't be able to see that they're coming because they are stealthy. And let's say that you just don't need them for fighting. Well, go do some pillaging. Go do some raiding. Go cut off a retreat point. So you're going to have a big cataclysmic battle with somebody. Have a couple of units of these, take the terrain behind the enemy, and cut off their retreats. So all their retreating units just auto die. Great way to finish off an army that otherwise may have survivors get away. I like these quite a lot. So good, strong start here on the roster. Moving up, we have some of the repetitive type units. These are mostly more of the cheaper options. So we have the Jotun Bondi. He has an axe, he's wearing full leather armor, has a shield and a reinforced leather cap. He is not great at it. He's kind of the equivalent of a militia unit for us. 20 gold, 15 resources, 11 recruitment. Does have 11 morale, which is nice. as seen on most of our giant chassis here, we're going to be susceptible to shock 5. We have 15 cold resist, and we have snow move. Our magic resist is decent. Our protection is decent. We have 5 natural protection as our racial. 31 HP, high strength. These guys are usable. I don't know why I would be getting these, generally speaking, unless I literally just needed large bodies. Should be noted, 3.6 siege strength is really nice on our giants. That's coming off of our high strength, and our siege defense isn't miserable. Next up, we have the Jotun Javelinist. This would be my preference over the Bondi, just simply because he now has some javelins. Remember, javelins are based on strength, so having 21 strength here also gives him 4.4 siege strength. Very nice. And these are the type of javelins that, for 23 piercing damage, even a heavily armored middle-aged troop fears a giant javelin. Otherwise, he's equipped relatively similarly, a little bit more premium based on his equipment. He's okay. If you wanted some javelins, you could do worse. Next up, we have a Jotun Spearman. Now we're getting heavier. We've moved up to a chainmail hauberk. This takes our protection to 19. We are solidly in what most would consider heavy infantry. We are wielding a spear that is length 4. That cannot be underestimated because that means that we can, in theory, get repels off of length 3s. Otherwise, we have the standard stats of our giant race. 30 gold, 39 resources, 17 recruitment points. These are pricey, however. Decent, though. Next up, we have the Jotun Axeman. He is wearing our heavier armor. He has an axe. Otherwise, he is exceedingly similar. Why would I get him over the Spearman? He hits a little bit harder. So we have the same attack value. However, we hit for 5 more damage. That might be relevant to you if you're having to try to hack down, let's say, a monolith. I'd rather be hitting him with an axe than a spear, or anything where maybe you want the slashing damage. Do remember, slashing damage is better at breaking shields. That could be a benefit there. Yeah, these guys are okay. If I wanted an axe and I wanted heavy, this would be fine. Next, we have the Jotun Hurler. A little bit of a meme unit here. The problem with Hurler units is always their ammo. They have 2 shots. That's a pretty big problem. Range 7, 2 shots. You're going to hate it when you see these guys on walls, but as an attacking unit, I'm not in love with them. They're wearing leather armor, no shield. They have our standard traits. They also have a siege bonus. If you needed more siege, which I don't know if you're going to because your giant troops are already pretty good at it, but if you did, 9.4 siege strength each, 10 of these guys is going to give you 94 siege strength. That is not bad. You could rip through things relatively quickly with that. Other than that, I don't know. I'm not a big hurler, boulder thrower fan. I know some people are. We also don't have air to buff their precision or strength, particularly, or earth to buff strength. And they exist. They're scary when you have to attack our forts, and they're going to have extra ammo and be able to pummel you from the walls, though. So pretty good on that aspect. Next up, we have the Moose Rider. Also can be recruited in all forests. This is back on our Veti units. These guys, I wish the gold cost was a little bit lower and I would be much more into these. They're not miserable, though. So you get 2 riders that are wielding a dagger and a short bow, and they are riding a moose who has kick and antler attacks. They have cold resist. The moose has cold resist. They have snow move and stealth. So you do have stealthy moose. The moose himself is an animal and is undisciplined, but while he has a rider, he is not undisciplined. For these guys, especially if you could get them a little bit of buffing, we do have decent access to Astral. If you could somehow get good coverage on these with Ethereal, I think hold and attack rear with these would actually be pretty spooky. They have Mobile Archer, so both of these guys are going to get short bow shots off while they're running. And then they have an okay dagger attack, so you'll get dagger attack, kick, and antlers. Only 1 per square, but I don't know, maybe like 10 of these with some point buffing on them could do something. If you also wanted to do fire and maintain distance shenanigans, these are not the worst. The moose himself has 24 combat speed. He's up there with like light cavalry. That's not terrible. I think you could get some use out of these. You could also get yourself in some trouble with fire and keep distance. But more more bonus to us because we mostly have giants in our leadership positions. We're less likely to get one dude follows these into the back line and then kills off your entire leadership. So you have that going for you at least. So interesting unit. Good memes, I think, here for sure. Jotun Huskarl. This is a kind of our, for us, a medium troop. He's got a ringmail halberd, a iron cap, and a shield. He's wielding an axe. Do note he is wielding an axe and went up to 11 attack. That is pretty nice. Has our standard traits, in addition, bodyguard. 15 protection is not terrible. Again, maybe this is just the price point that you can afford and you want some axes. Here you go. Also, the bodyguard could be useful. Because we have giants in most of our leadership, assassins are less likely to get on you, but in the game behind us here, I had a Pythium assassin almost kill one of my expensive mages. He did die, but not before muting me, crippling me, and giving me a limp. So maybe if I had had some bodyguards on him, he would not be in that state. Next up, we have the Gaudi Huskarl. This is a javelin unit, essentially. Again, kind of a medium-ish troop. Chainmail cuirass, an iron cap, a shield, spear, and javelin. Has bodyguard. Bodyguards with spears, maybe that's interesting. They're okay if you want a heavier javelin unit. Bodyguards sometimes will throw javelins. Maybe that interests you a little bit. So it could be a thing here. They're not terrible. Next up, we have the Jotun Hilderman. This is generally, if I'm not constrained by anything, my line troop of choice. They have a broadsword that is length 2, which I quite like. That means we can repel most other people that are not spear users. We also have 13 attack. That is really nice. Because we are size 6, we have very low attack density. So it's important that when we attack, we connect. If we connect at 28 slashing damage, there's a very good chance that we are going to deal damage. We also have 13 morale and 18 protection. So we're not too bad on getting repelled off, even if we are fighting spear people. So they're all right. The downside here, though, is 50 gold, 41 resources, 31 recruitment points each. So just over 200 resources to get 5 of these. That's pricey. That's very pricey. These are precious units. You don't want to be throwing away 10 of these guys per fight. Ideally, you'd like to have lowish losses if you can. Again, they have our standard traits and bodyguard. Very usable troop. In our cap, we have 2 cap-only units. Our first is the Ufheden. Very, very good unit. You know, everyone talks about heavy armor, humans, and crossbows, but I'm starting to suspect that Middle Age is actually the age of the werewolf. That being said, he is pretty darn good. A length 4 spear with 12 attack and 26 damage. That makes him a pretty potent repel unit right off the bat. He does have some armor with furs and leather cap. However, that's only going to take him to 12 with his natural armor, natural protection. He is backed up with 10% regeneration, so he is going to heal, I believe he heals 4 per turn. Yeah, I think he does 4 per turn with that, and it doesn't have a symbol here, which I really wish Illwinter would give a pass to shapeshifters, so they always had a symbol for second form. They will turn into a werewolf. I didn't think about this beforehand. Do I have a battle? I don't have a good battle to show that, unfortunately. They turn into a werewolf that has a claw attack and a bite. They're both legs 0 because they're natural attacks, but they're a relatively good attack value and good damage. So these guys are actually really good at expanding. In addition, they use hardly any resources because you're only paying for a spear, some furs, and a leather cap. So 70 gold, 5 resources, 38 recruitment points. Oftentimes, this is probably what I'm going to start expanding with in the early game. Not only are they repellers that also hit hard, they have a second shape, they have regen. All of those are really good traits to have. If these guys were not cap only, I think this would be an absolute top tier nation. As it is, I think they're a very strong nation. You're gonna always wish you could get more of these guys out because they are so good and relatively survivable due to the double form and regeneration. Very, very nice unit here. High siege strength because they have very high strength at 23. They are standard giant size, so size 2s fit in well with them. Very, very nice. Combat speed isn't miserable, good morale, just excellent all around. Finally, we have our cap-only sacred, the Shielding. This is a cap-only and a good one. When I first started testing this nation, I assumed that these would cost 2 holy points to recruit, and I was like, oh man, these aren't very good if I could only get 2 or 3 of them. I was wrong. They only require 1 point. That makes them incredible. In early age, your sacreds are good, but very hard to get in numbers that actually matter. They're just kind of like rocks that cold rock, ice, glacier pieces that sit there and just block things, essentially. These guys, you can get them in enough numbers to actually be pretty good fighters. They are pricey. 100 gold, 43 resources, 40 recruitment points is nothing to shake a stick at. However, they are limited by your sacred points, so most of the time you're getting between, like, let's say 4 and 7 of these guys. That's not too bad. They have a length 2 broadsword again at 13 attack and 29 damage. That's solid. They are wearing good equipment. Chainmail halberd, half helmet, shield. They have good protection here because of their 6 natural protection, so they're coming in at base 20. And I say base because they have ice protection. This will give you plus protection equal to the number of cold scales or minus the number of heat scales. So you definitely want these guys to stay where it's cold. Let's say you're in cold 2, which is our native preference. That takes these guys up to, I'm pretty sure that actually stacks properly up to a 22. If you were cold 3 or a cold 4, now we're getting up to the very, very hard to get through that protection from them. In addition, not only are they hard to wound and they have a lot of HP, they have a chill aura. And chill aura 3 is pretty decent. Now, auras in general got nerfed in Dominion 6. They do not stack in intensity. Put an asterisk on that, I'll come back to it. They stack in size. However, Chill 3 is not bad. You can have instances where 2 auras will stack together and raise their number by 1. That means we could go up to a chill, it's hard to say, a cloud level 2. Cloud level 2 is not high enough to do direct damage, but it is more intense on the fatigue damage that a unit will take. So you'll oftentimes, especially in grindy combat, or like the example of Swarm, I did a Swarm throne in this one. So I just went through there's 1,000 bugs in front of you. Most of them froze in my aura. So yes, it took me forever to chop my way through them, but they were literally incapable of doing anything as they were frozen. It is all right. It's unfortunate. That was a needed nerf probably, but it hurt. It hurt a lot. Otherwise, we have our standard traits. We're sacred. We are shock susceptible. We have 25 cold resist. We have the snow move and the ice protection. Overall, pretty good sacred. I do think they are worthy of a bless. I don't think you want to go hell bless on them. Single attack means you're not getting too much. They are tough, but not unkillable. They don't have a ton of tricks to go on. And they also have a distinct weakness of fighting in not cold areas where, let's say it's heat 2, we're at 18 protection. Still good, but we're starting to be a lot more woundable than before. Should be noted here, we went up to 41 HP. You're like, who cares? That's only 1 more HP than the shapeshifter. 41, and every time you go up to 1 in the next 1's place, you get an extra regen. So these guys regen 5 per round if you give them regeneration rather than 4. That adds up a lot. That's an 1/8 of our HP rather than a 1/10. Overall, very usable. I'm very happy that this did not use 2 sacred points, or they would be much, much worse than they are. So, quite like this unit. I do think you'd like a little bit of a bless. Generally speaking, I would probably err more towards a defensive thing that makes them just rock solid than an offensive thing. But without some offense, don't count on these guys to be major killers. Just be forewarned there. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. Starting with our Jotunheim heroes, we have 4 different heroes. We have the Wolf Lord. This is a Veti that rides a white wolf. He's pretty cool. He gets extra normal wolves are his ally summons. Other than that, he's not particularly special. He's a good leader, I suppose. He's cool. He does have a lance rather than a spear. That's cool. Next, we have the Great Hag. Very powerful spellcaster here. 3 astral, 3 death, 2 nature, 3 glamour, 3 blood. This is relatively within reach of most of our mages, but never on the same chassis. So we have a lot of options here for cross-pathing. Right off the bat, I see a combo for nature and glamour to bring in the Unseelie Fae summons. The Fae Knights really like cold. That is a very, very strong cavalry option. That would give us a very heavy cav option. And she can do that natively, or maybe she needs a Thistle Mace. I don't quite remember the cost, but very, very easy there. She can get into Sabbaths. She can get into Communions. I think she's probably our highest Death Master, or close to. Otherwise, she's got decent research. She has the shock susceptibility, cold resistance. She has poison resistance. She is pretty dang old. She has Fortune Teller 15. If you kill her, she curses you. Also, Grandma was into some kinky stuff in her younger days. She's an Adept Crossbreeder 8. I don't know if we're really interested in crossbreeding. I don't think we have any special results from that, but we are probably going to go with at least a little bit of blood. So maybe that's your bag, because it's definitely hers. Next up, we have the Abductor. Hide your kids, hide your wife. The Abductor's in town. He is our, I think, only air access, or at least our only easy air access at Air 3. That is close to empowering up to 4 and then making air boosters. Although, where you're going to put those, I don't know. With 3, he could make magic carpets, though, or air boots, or other things. All would be nice. He's got water and death. This makes for a very, very good, probably super combatant level person, because you can mist form, liquid body, quicken self, various death things, depending on how much you want to invest into it. Very, very nice here. Do note he's not wearing a helmet. Just note that. He's at priest level 2. He's cold resistant. He's got a huge chill aura. He can shapeshift into a great eagle. This would make him a very interesting prophet, because you could shift into great eagle and fly throne to throne or fight to fight. Could be pretty nice there. Cold power and ice protection 3. That's a lot. In cold 4, that would give him 12 protection, skyrocketing that 13 up to 25. Could be pretty cool. It does also come with a magic weapon, which is nice to see. Final hero, we have Undying. Very interesting one here. Astral 2, Death 2, Nature 3, Glamour 2, Blood 1. Things I said about the other grandma kind of apply here. She's got fire resistant, cold resist, poison resist, and she's got immortality. That's very interesting. Immortal heroes, especially if you can find something battlefield-wide that they could do, are very, very strong. Unfortunately, we don't have access to Wailing Winds or Winds of Death. Those are the two that pop into my head, but you could probably come up with something here that she could do. Rigor Mortis and some Skelly spam from somebody else or something. You could come up with something here, and being immortal is very, very handy. She also comes in with Glamour, and she has Fortune Teller 10. Cool hero. Gives us some interesting stuff. Overall, nice lineup. I really like this. Usable. There's nobody here I would be disappointed to get. Wolf Lord's probably the least usable, but that's fine. He's not terrible. Going into our regular commander lineup, first is one of our problem units, our Jotun Scout. The reason I don't like these is a scout should never see combat, and he is almost double the cost of a regular scout, so I do not love that. Beyond that, he's competent. If he gets caught and has to fight or something, he can probably at least take somebody with him, maybe. Beyond that, you'd ideally not be recruiting him as a scout. You would probably want a chief. He is stealthy 40 compared to stealthy 40, so he's no worse. And he is only 65 gold. So I guess it's the same price there. But at least with him, he can pillage and he can lead troops. Whereas over here, we have no leadership. And I don't love either option, but I do tend to end up getting these guys. The other thing is Jotun Scout is not a recruit anywhere, whereas the Chief is a recruit in forests. So you can at least get these guys outside of your forts, because your forts are probably going to need to be building other people. Next up, we have our leadership lineup, and kind of an oddball here, but kind of regular for giants. So we have a leader who is sacred with 75 leadership. He has decent gear and a protection value of 18. Standard traits for our race. I don't love this guy because he can't help bless. However, he can take your bless, so that is something. If you need it to make a profit later and you have nobody better to do it on, this guy would be a good target because he is cheaper than our other options and he's not already a priest and has nothing to do. So that's an option. Next up, we have the Jotun Gode. This is a priest level 2, which is great. However, only 50 leadership, so no formations. That hurts quite a bit. He is on our lighter leather gear. That's also a bit unfortunate. Then we have the Jotun Jarl. He is a priest level 1. However, his leadership goes up to 100. So this is all really awkward. Like, you're probably going to make one of these guys your first prophet if you prophetize turn 1, because that's what you start with, this or a scout. If you replace him, though, I wouldn't necessarily get another one of him unless you prefer the higher protection, I suppose. He's okay. He's got good leadership, so you'll probably be using these to lead some armies around. Next up, we have a very good unit. The Veti Hag can be recruited in all forests. Normally, I like to see sacred mages. However, in this case, it's a good thing she's not, because all we require is a lab, and we can start pumping these out. They're not slow to recruit. They're 60 gold, 3 resources, 2 recruitment points, so dirt cheap. They are weak. They are like a goblin chassis, but if something's hitting your mage, 3 more HP is not going to change the outcome of that at all. And being very small, she actually could have lots of bodyguard units in the same square, possibly lowering the odds that she's actually hit. And we come in with a 100% chance to get a random Astral, Death, Nature, Glamour, Blood. Normally, I'm not overly excited about any of those things, but I really like it here. 60 gold, guys. 60 gold. Astral 1, you can do Body Ethereal, and you can do, what's that low level? Starfire? Like a weak attack. So plenty of things to do there. Death 1, not the best, but you could spam some skeletons. That's not the worst thing ever. Nature 1, I actually like Nature 1 mages. You could do Personal Barkskin if you wanted. You could do Eagle Eyes. You could throw Vine Arrows. You could web. You could, I think, animate trees. Lots of things to do there. Glamour 1, again, not the best. You could do a little bit of light buffing, I think. And you could spam, like, Warrior Illusions. That's fine. Those are pretty good. Blood 1, again, not the best, but you could help get into a Sabbath. You wouldn't be particularly good, and you're probably going to explode whenever something gets cast, but maybe you just need to get high enough to cast that one big battlefield spell that's going to be the difference between a win and a loss. And if I have to choose somebody to blow out in a Sabbath, a 60 gold chassis is my choice. Beyond that, they have cold resist, they are stealthy, they have forest survival, they are old as normal. They do have an inept researcher too. However, 60 gold to get one. They have 5 research. They only cost 58 gold upkeep. So we are at the efficiency. We are 2 under. 10 gold per research is my bar that I like to reach. If you add magic scales, though, magic scale 2 gives you, what would that be, a 10% increase? I don't think my math is right. Don't do math while you're recording, builders. But magic 2 or magic 3 takes us up to 7 or 8. If this was 8 research for 48 gold, you would be very happy about that. If we look at my test game behind us here, Asphodel attacking me. Thank you very much, Asphodel. Right here, we have 7 on this area with the magic 1, because we have already got a level up. We go to our capital and look at one of these guys. We are currently doing 9. Again, we are leveled up, and we have 3 magic scales. So 9 research for 48 gold. That is almost 5 gold per research. Double my normal efficiency bar. That is great. I love these guys. And the simple fact that they are vaguely useful in combat is just the icing on the cake for them. Next up, we have a Gaija. This is okay. I don't like this as much because now we're getting a wide pathing, but not increasing the level of spells that we can really cast. We have Death 1, Glamour 1, Blood 1, and a random of Astral, Death, Nature, Glamour, Blood. These would be good to support, like, let's say, Illusion spammers or Skelly spammers, because they actually have pathing in those, so they won't blow up nearly as easy. In addition, they have 30 HP. 30 HP and being able to get into Sabbaths kind of mean you can do turbo communions. We've talked about that a little in a couple streams recently. Maybe this stream will be able to actually set one up and I can kind of show that off in practice. 184 gold per year upkeep for only 13 research is not efficient. She also brings in our standard traits and has Fortune Teller 5. Overall, I would only get these if I had a reason for them to support a Sabbath, I think. Beyond that, I think we have better options. Next up, we have a Jotunheim. Very nice here. This guy is a werewolf. He can ship to a werewolf form and a wolf form. The wolf form especially has really high stealth. When you shift into those other forms, you do lose magic pathing. So you generally want to be in this form while casting or sight searching. We come in with 2 water, 2 blood, and we get a random of water, death, glamour, blood. I think the main standout here are the water and the blood ones. 3 in both of those is useful for various things we want to do. We'll talk about that more when we get to magic, but very, very nice. We are strongly incentivized to get out there and blood hunt and sight search for water. So this is going to be your guy. He is slow to recruit, not a cap only. Kind of pricey at 360. Does have multiple forms though, that's nice. Is wearing some armor at least. Note he does not come in natively with the regen. That's a little unfortunate compared to his other werewolf brethren. Next up we have the Thrimsgode. Very nice unit here. He is a cap only, and he is slow to recruit, but not breaking the bank particularly. 340 gold, 33 resources, slow to recruit. You get a water 1, priest level 2, random water, death, glamour. Any of those options is going to allow him to self-buff with various interesting things. You'll always be able to give yourself quicken self, which is pretty nice. I like these guys a lot. They have the 100 leadership and decent protection. They are rocking the ice protection and cold power, so their stats could be decently higher depending on the temperature scales around you. I like these guys to lead my armies. They can get up there and brawl it up. They have a length 3 battle axe, and they're very good with it, and they hit for 39 damage. This guy could put on Quicken Self, Liquid Body, Attack, and you're going to be pretty happy with that, especially if you have some ice protection power in there. Let's say he's got 18 protection, and we could have 2 more attack, we could have 2 more strength. This is pretty good. This is like a monolith killer. Get 5 of these guys, get in there. You would be very happy with the results of that, I think. Pretty cool unit, for sure. Finally, we have the Yarnvidja. She is a cap only, like, witch thing. 500 gold is very pricey. Slow to recruit also, cap only. You get death 1, glamour 1, blood 1. However, you get 3 separate 100% chances and a 10% to get astral, death, nature, glamour, blood. So let's say you win the lottery here and you hit blood, blood, blood. Now you have a blood 4 unit. Or nature, nature, nature. You could get nature 3. You're going to be fishing for these, I think. Death 2 allows you to make skull staves. Nature 2 allows you to make thistle maces. Also allows us to do a national spell. The glamour stuff is very usable. The high blood can be very usable. Blood nature allows us to do blood fecundity, various different cross pathings that you can summon in. Pretty good. It is frustrating when you're trying to get these out to go sight searching. I think if I get a level 2 in anything, I think that one's ready to go. So a 2 death, a 2 glamour, 2 nature, a 2 astral, any of those, I'm probably going to get out and do a little sight searching. Be careful though, that's expensive. 500 gold for a old, very old. She's not even close. She's very old witch. Has death curse, has adept crossbreeder. They're usable. I don't think you go too crazy with these, but they also could be leading your blood sabbaths, depending on what you get in here. Let's say you got a death 2 or 3. This would be a great one to have a couple of Geisha supporting them. Also, if you can get nature 2, you could do personal regen, and that's going to turn on your turbo communion with our little ones. So very important unit. You will probably need to start fishing for certain combos at some point, but they do compete with a very good leader that is also maybe a thug for you. So that can be rather difficult. Either way, I think you'd like to be recruiting one of these 2 every single turn as soon as you can afford it. Overall, profit-wise, I'm probably sticking down here. This guy's already a priest level 2 and he has other things to do. A expensive mage that's not particularly defensive. Maybe this guy, he can go into wolf form and stealth. So you could have a stealth prophet. That could be a thing, possibly. Overall, though, I like this guy because of his cheapness. This guy because of his leadership. Probably sticking with one of those two for the profit. National items and spells. For national items, we have no national items. For national spells, we have a very healthy list of spells. First up in Conjuration, we have, at level 3 Conjuration, we have Summon Glossos. We will look at these all in a second. These are those fire boars. Not particularly great because we're going to go exceedingly cold, but it does give you a way to dump death gems, and maybe you do need a heat unit, and this guy can do that for you. We can natively cast the spell, big bonus. Sloth of Bears. My opinion about bears is pretty wide known. These are not specially sacred, unfortunately. However, we can cast them natively if you're in a pinch. I probably wouldn't use these, though, because we can summon the Brood of Garm. Nature 2, 10 gems. What do you get? You get 5 Jotun Wolves. These are sacred. We'll look at them in a minute. We can awaken Jotun Drogar. Again, another dump for death. Again, we can cast this natively. You only get 3 for 15. I don't love the efficiency here. Some people swear by these. I don't know. Especially since we can get fear from Garm. We don't need to rely on these guys to get fear. I'm iffy on that one. Next up, we have Summon Ribvitar. Water 2, we can do natively. 5 water gems isn't too bad. And you summon in 5 plus per cast, so 1 gem each. These guys are monsters. Absolute monsters. I'll show you when we get there. Finally, in Conjuration, we have Summon Dwarf of the Four Directions. We cannot remotely cast this natively. You'd have to build a pretender for it. It brings in various summons of dwarves that have various combinations of air, earth, and something else usually. If you get all 4 of them, you plunge the world into darkness and storms and like hurricanes. I don't think we're too interested in this. We already have a Screw the World spell that we can do that's better, but it could be an interesting option if for some reason you went like, I don't know, awareness, shock resist, whatever you got out of your earth on your pretender. Maybe that could be a very late game surprise for somebody. Next up in Thaumaturgy. At Thaumaturgy 5, we have Seath Curse. We can natively cast this, but I don't know why you would. It's a remote 5 curse spell. I guess if you see a solo like Titan or Expander god, you probably should take your shot and try to do it to get a curse on them. Beyond that, I don't know why you would cast this. Finally, in Blood, at Blood 6, we have 2 amazing spells. We have Winter's Call. We can natively cast this with our Scrotty. That is amazing. 86 Blood is pricey. What do you get? A Neefel Jarl. Oh, baby. He's back. And we also have the titular Illwinter spell. This one's going to be harder. So you're probably going to be looking at, I would say, a Scrotty that came in with 3 blood, 2 water. One of your water 3 guys will build him a robe. And then you're going to either empower or get some boosters to get to blood 5. 120 is not very pricey. What does it do? Affects the entire world. 50% chance of gaining a D4 of unrest. You get +1 cold every 4 months. You get random attacks in cold provinces. And allows the recruitment of 1 Neefel giant in every fort for Jotun nations. I think back on our sites, that +1 recruitment means that we'll be able to summon in or recruit 2 Neefel giants from our fort or from our capital. Let's take a look at all of those units. First up, let's look at Glosso. I think I'd rather probably use the Jotun Dragar if I was wanting to burn death gems. But let's say you need something that's heat resistant. This is your boy. He's size 4, so you can have one of these guys share a spot with a giant. Do note that Cold Aura and Heat Aura are going to fight each other, and neither one's immune to the others, so that's a bit of an oof. They are sacred, so they'll get whatever you took for your bless. They have Trample, Stealthy 50, Force Survival, Animal, and Dark Vision 100. Usable, but you have to be very purposeful with it, I would say. The Great Bear, it's a Great Bear. I probably wouldn't waste nature gems on these, though, especially when I could be summoning in the Jotun Wolf. Very, very good chassis here. 30 HP, so you're going to regen 5 if you give them regeneration. Good strength. They are size 6, unfortunately, it'd be so much more powerful if they were size 4, so they could share with our giants. They're very fast. They are sacred. They have fear 5, cold resist, snow move, berserk +3, so 12 protection once they go berserk. They are forest, survival, and animals. So we have a berserking, relatively tough fear unit. Very nice. They also have 2 good attacks. Bite and Claw, 13 attack, 25, 23 damage. They are length 3, so they're prone to getting repelled, but Berserkers don't care about repel. Very, very nice usable unit here. You're going to be very happy to get these out, I think. The Jotun Drog is a shape-shifting undead. He does have the benefit of being an amphibian. He has Fear 5. He has a Chill Aura. He has Spirit Sight. I suppose if I just had to dump death gems and I didn't like any other option, I'd go here. But they're just too bloody expensive, I think. I don't like the ratio and the slowness to get them in. I think you'd probably want to go with like Whites or Banes or something if you just want to dump death gems. Next up, we have the Rimveti. These guys are absolute monsters. Why? They are the size 2. They have relatively human stats for a little size 2 goblin. They have good attack skill. 13 attack, 15 damage is not terrible, actually, using their hatchet. They're wearing leather armor, shield, and a reinforced leather cap. Why do I love them so much? They have ice protection and ice power. So this is going to boost them up. Let's go with just 2. So we'd have 11 protection. We'd up our strength and our attack skill by 2. 15 attack, 17 damage. No, they're going to share their square with a giant. So you'll have a giant and 2 of these guys in a square. And cold power will raise your defense skill. So now you're probably looking at defense 16. That's getting to the realm that you're kind of hard to hit. And you have a shield. So these guys are actually really survivable. And these guys plus a giant is a great thing to throw some buffs into. Body ethereal, quickness, liquid body. All of those things are easy for us to do, or relatively easy for us to do. Even bark skin, if you wanted to go that route, if you're not worried about fire stuff. Very, very good. I love these guys. The fact that the spell is 5+ for 5 gems means that a water 3 guy that's casting this already is getting 6 if you have somebody with higher water or your pretender doing it. My pretender in the game behind us here has a strong, I think I have 7 water. So I actually was pulling in an absolute ton of these guys. I think I got 10 per cast, if I'm doing my math right. Very, very efficient. They have very high cold resist. They also have a chill aura, which combos well with our sacreds. Very solid. Very, very solid. We can natively cast it on Scrotty, so you can just dump water gems very quickly into these, and every army will be happy to have some of these filtering into your giants. Finally, we have the Nifl Jarl. Again, you're going to be pretty happy with these. You have Water 3, Death 2 natively, and they can random a Water Death Glamour. These are the Jarls from early age, essentially. 75 HP is great. That means you're going to regen 8 if you give them regeneration. They have Cold Protection 3, so at Cold 2, we'd have 20 protection. They also have Cold Power, so their stats could be higher. They come in with a magic weapon, which is nice. No helmet, but that's okay. They are priest level 2s. Absolutely great. They're our best leader. You're going to love summoning these guys in, and they're on blood magic. So as you can scale up your blood hunting operation, you could get to the point where you're summoning one of these per turn. It's not a particularly taxing spell for us to cast. Like, you don't need a pretender to be able to do it. This natively can come in on a Scrotty, and it's not even that low of a chance. So you will be very happy with that. Very, very happy with that. Unfortunately, my mod here does not have the Nifl Giants that we can recruit from our forts, but they are the regular Nifl Giants from early age, I believe. Correct me in the comments down below if I'm incorrect about that. Again, we also don't have the Dwarves of the Four Direction on here, but like I said, they are air earth casters with maybe a little bit of variance. I think maybe one of them has fire or something. You're probably not getting it on this nation, though, so I wouldn't sweat that too much. Magic items. Things that are interesting here, the Ice Scimitar. Because we have cold resistance on everybody, a lingering cloud of strength 4 is good. From strength 3 up, you actually can deal actual damage. And if you freeze enemies, that damage is uncapped rather than being capped at 1 or 2 normally. It gives you extra cold resistance. It does require air gems, so you'd have to have broken into air to get this, but it could be a thing. You also could, of course, do frost brands pretty easily from here. The next one I would call out would be Ice Aegis, could be relatively decent. Notice it's got the ice armor, so you get the extra protection if you're where it's extra cold. Ice Helmet is a very cheap helmet option for some of those giants that do not have helmets on. So that's nice to have that option. We can make horror helmets natively. A Neeful Jarl with a horror helmet is scary indeed. We can natively do glamour boosters if we get lucky on our big hag unit there. Could be pretty nice with that. From miscellaneous, unfortunately, we're not too great at any of the research boosters. We don't have native air. We could do homunculi, but the problem with this is that you're not summoning in broods of Garm. I think you like that more. I think the most interesting one would probably be a Dreamstone. You have to have this on your glamour mages, but a Vadi or the little Vadi hag that normally has 5 natural research, this is going to almost triple, almost triple the amount of research with just one of these. So if you get up to 5, I think that could be good. We are blood hunters, so we would be interested in Sanguine Dowsing Rods, so there's a decent chance that we do that. Brazen Vessel is a blood booster. Hard to do at blood 5, but if you boost somebody to blood 5, I definitely would get a few of those. Also, I should call out Armor of Twisting Thorns. This is a nature blood booster. The thing is, it's cursed, so you can't move it from unit to unit. But again, you'd probably have to do a little bit of boosting to get somebody here, because if you are nature 2, I think the highest blood we could get would be 1. But blood boosting isn't too bad. Getting a few of these to buff, even if it's just the nature, not even necessarily to buff the blood and not necessarily the nature, might be worthwhile. So a lot of boosting options here. Robe of the Sea I mentioned earlier for water boosting could be good. We can get underwater using Shambler Skin or Ring of Water Breathing. We got a lot of good options, although we are not particularly great at crafting. Beyond that, in Magic, other things to think about. Woven Winter at Alteration 4 allows you to do cold scales +3. We really would prefer to fight in the cold in almost every battle. So being able to spam this out in front of your army, it's relatively cheap. We can cast it natively relatively easy. I think that is pretty important. Frozen Heart. This is a very good spell that most nations don't get to, but if you did, that could be pretty good. In Evocation, Rain, if you're not in the cold, can help against fire spells. If you are in the cold, it turns to snow, which is much less useful. Cold Bolt is nice. We can, of course, do Falling Frost. We can do Ice Strikes. Decent offensive here. All of those are pretty good AoE type spells. Conjuration, I do think we climb Conjuration. We have great summons from here. In addition, it could be interesting to grab a pretender that has some fire and summon in some flame spirits, because the plus attack buff would be very interesting for our troops. We would like that. That's a bit of a stretch, though, perhaps. In enchantment, the big thing here is personal regen to get that into your Sabbaths, I would say. Some of the glamour stuff can be interesting. Ditto with evocation and glamour. We could get glamour 3s in theory. We could maybe get glamour astral cross-pathing. Could do a project self stuff. We can summon false horrors. The ephemeral blast is very strong. All those are pretty darn good. Thaumaturgy also is pretty decent. It's got some buffing in it. In addition to that, we have the attack buffs in the Battle Fury line. We have the nature animal buffs, which could be good for our brood of Grom wolves. So overall, pretty good. We are decent casters. We like buffing. We have a nice, strong front line to sit in front of us. I also should call out Skelly Spam. If you do go up to Horde of Skeleton, with a Turbo Communion, you can put a lot of skeletons on the map. Especially if you start with like a, let's say, Death 2 Blood 1 mage that goes into a Communion to boost them up. You could cast a lot of skeletons. And the skeletons are size 3, so you can at least have a giant and a skeleton in the same square, which is rather nice. Another thing that would be good for us, but we can't natively do, would be Freezing Mist. This is a Lingering Cloud 4. All of our units have cold resist, but this would hurt enemies a lot. So if for some reason you end up with water and air from something, this would be pretty good for you to do. Okay, so let's bring all of that together. Middle-Age Jotunheim is a nation that has a solid troop lineup with a good variety. We have some light cavalry options. We have some pillager options. We have decent sacreds. We have a regening, spear repelling troop. Pretty darn nice. We make giant infrastructure, which, while expensive, is also pretty good. If we look at a giant castle here, good admin, good wall integrity, pretty nice. We get 18 of those hurlers to protect us, pretty good overall. We have recruit from forests with just a laboratory mages. That is really nice. Our cheap, very efficient researchers that also have a little bit of combat capability. We really like being in the cold, as you can see here. This takes us up to a second to show it here. Current natural protection 11, due to our ice protection being so bloody high, and +5 here from it being cold to my attack skill, to my defense skill, to my strength. All amazing things. Very, very nice there. Makes our units very, very efficient when you can fight in the cold. Makes getting a Throne of the Winter a very high priority for me. Remember that we do like it cold, and even just at cold 2 at winter, some of your areas may go to cold 3 or cold 4, and that will give you some pop kill, unfortunately. If you look at the temperature scale bonus, -0.4. We would certainly like to help counteract that with a little bit of growth, if you could afford it. For most of our unit costs, we are about equal in resources and recruitment points. If we look here, 4340, the exception being our cap-only werewolf, 4131. We edge maybe a little bit towards resources, maybe tilt yourself that way a little bit. We can supplement our forces with really good summons that we definitely would like to do. And we have decent casters that we can bring in. I do think you want to find something that you're interested in doing in blood, because we have so much blood access. We're not the most efficient blood hunters, but we are also pretty tough, so they hopefully won't die. Blood fecundity stands out to me as being something interesting. Bloodletting could be something interesting. We're probably going to 6 at minimum, so anything below that. Frost Fiends could be interesting. So take a look through here, find something you like in this. Do note that we want to stay more towards cold than heat. Devils like heat, generally speaking, so keep that in mind. We do have blood and glamour cross-pathing, so we could go Succubus Incubus if we get lucky, or boost up into that. So lots and lots of variety here. I quite like it. I feel like it's a really fun magic combo. And being able to summon in these guys, I really like them. I like that we have the wolves. I like that we have these. Fun nation. We're definitely going to want to do good site searching. You can see I'm starting, but I'm not great. Yeah, I'm starting to try to really focus on water. She's been site searching for a while for glamour. Definitely get out there and take gems, because we definitely can spend them probably as fast as you can find them once you get up and running. All right, let's take a look at pretenders. For pretenders, we have some of the Norse gods. We don't have the best mix, unfortunately, but not the worst either. Down in Dominion 1, we do have a Scrati. 120 points for a Blood 1, though. I'm not loving that. I think I would go 100 points for a Freak Lord probably before that, just because 20 points is nothing to scratch at. We do have the Wolf Queen here. Chassis I do not like. Great Enchantress. She is a Glamour Gem Jenner. That could be vaguely interesting. You have the Great Sage if you want to go really hard into research. Make your very efficient researchers even more efficient with Inspiring Researcher. That could be a thing. We have the Frostfather if you want to do something with water and air. That's a pretty decent chassis. Something you may consider would be like some shock resistance to counter that for our sacreds, or maybe awareness and shock resistance. Maybe we do something like that. Maybe we just stop there if we want something really cheap. I've been testing with Frostmist weapons. I'll talk about that more when we get to a god that has that. I don't think the chill aura is worthwhile. It does not particularly increase your damage. It would just be a size increase. And once you start grouping up people with chill auras, you really don't need the size increase. So I'm not in love with that one. I'm not in love with a lot of the water stuff, unfortunately. Other things to look at. We do have the Linomer, if you're a Linomer enjoyer. We have the Son of Fenrir. I think this is a pretty interesting one. He's not quite tough enough to solo expand, probably, but if you gave him some probably regen, so let's see for him. I think I would probably want the regen bless and then also personal regen. Our protection's only 13. We do berserk 7, but that first hit's gonna really hurt. I'm not sure about the wall. I think I would try. I mean, even if you could just get one earth, and that would allow us to do some self buffing. Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, personal regen. This would be like Dave the Lion, but not relying on invulnerability. Instead, he's relying on actual protection. That would probably put you in the neighborhood of like mid 20s, and you would have 20% regen on his 122 HP. He has double attacks. He summons in 1d6 Jotun Wolves, which will be sacred, and if you're in your own dominion, he'll auto bless them. He does have Fear 10. Could be pretty interesting. I have ran that in Dominions 5. I liked it quite a bit. Beyond that, we have the Son of Nephil, very overpriced, 250 points. I don't see it. I just don't see it, unfortunately. We have the Davis of the Sun. She's a fire gem generator. No, I don't think the fire gems are that good on this nation, so I'm not particularly in love with that. The ubiquitous Demilich, however, I believe he's taken a cost nerf up to 170. He's nowhere near as cheap as he used to be. Definitely helping the game, I think. Otherwise, unless you're doing something specific with death, I don't know. Not really seeing that. His big claim to fame is new path cost 20 while being a Dom 3. That's vaguely interesting. Moving up to Dom 4, we do have Irminsul. That is a chassis I quite like. If you want to go exceedingly cheap, here it is. It's regeneration. Like just literally right there. We could be awake. We have several scales left. So let's get some of this. Let's get some of that. Make it a little chilly. I think if we're going that awake, we probably want pretty high dominion. That's going to be a leader and 5 guys or 6 sacreds per turn. Still have a little bit left. Maybe I go with a little bit of growth. Maybe we go double growth. That could be kind of interesting. Yeah, this is awake. I just want to point that out again. Why do I like this guy? A, he's a dirt cheap option. Regeneration on our sacreds gives them 5 HP per turn, and that makes them just really solid. They're not going anywhere with their chill aura and regen. He himself is immobile. He is an Ivy Lord. I don't think that's too useful here, but what I like for him is he gives us that starting site that gives us a nature income. We don't natively have nature income, and he can cast Brood of Garm. Now, unfortunately, there's no plus on that spell, so you're not going to get extras, but that gets us started on that. He also comes in, and I don't know what that totals out with his pathing, but he'll get like 20 research, give or take. That's not bad. Just something to get us started a little bit. And because he'll be awakened on the board, he'll spread his dominion pretty aggressively. And yeah, I think this is totally playable. You could play around with these scales a little bit if you wanted. I actually quite like this build. Sure, Leaf Saw, just so I can remember him. Let's take a look at a couple I already created. Actually, hang on, let's look at the other. Beyond him, we have the Idol of Sorcery. I do think that the extra magic scale is a viable thing here. Those little hags are just so good and efficient researchers. Magic 3 is very tempting. This gives us Astral Death Glamour, nothing we don't normally have, but if you could make a bless out of that, he would work. If you want air and you still want some nature, the Idol of Beasts. Idol of Man is here. I don't know about him. 180 is a little pricey. Monolith, of course. does monolith things. I like Sacred Geyser quite a lot. And we have the Blood Fountain. I think the Blood Fountain's extra interesting here because of the extra magic path. Could do something pretty interesting. Now, let's look at the actual ones I've already created. And you will see Icy Veins. This is a interesting one. He has Enchanted Blood and Frost Mist weapons. He also comes in with Magic 3, a pretty high Dominion, and a little bit of production. So, research. Now, the Frost Mist weapons, these are rough. They do actually make the frost magic, so they can affect ethereal beings, but it doesn't make your weapon magic. So that's a bit of an oof. The Cloud 3 is high enough that if they're not frozen, you can do 1 cold damage. If they freeze, it uncaps that and you can do more. This also can self-stack up to a cold 4, which gives you 2 cold damage, and then if they freeze, it will uncap that. I think his main claim to fame is the very, very high magic scales. I'm not sure the Frost Mist weapons are worthwhile, if I'm being honest. Chillara, I don't think is. I tested that. It just doesn't do enough. The size is not particularly helpful if I'm looking at it. Other things you could do with water, you could go with some extra defense, I suppose. Maybe you just dump the water entirely, get a cheap blood thing, and just use him for scales. Maybe this is more of a scales build properly. The second thing I went into was Pool of Griddeed. This is a pretty interesting one. Again, I'm still testing the Frost Mist weapons, but this time I went regen instead of Enchanted Blood. Giants like regen a lot, and Enchanted Blood just wasn't quite enough HP, and we don't need the magic resist from it. He comes in at Dormant. Only Magic 2, unfortunately. He does have a Misfortune. I didn't find that too bad. I didn't find the lack of production too bad. Very viable. Note, these are both incarnates. So in the beginning of the game, I would avoid your Sacreds and pull in the Werewolves to do all of your expansion. And then towards the end of year 1, I would start massing up your Sacreds. Beyond that, he's okay. He's okay. The other nice thing about him is Water 7 means that when we summon in those little frost goblins, you actually get 10 of them per cast. 10 of them for 5 water gems is very, very, very nice. And normally, while I don't like my god doing something like that, our other research was really efficient, so this didn't hurt as bad as it otherwise might. I did set this up that I could summon in Fire Spirits if I got that far, and use the Fire Spirits to do the Battle Fury buffs for my army. Who knows, maybe even a surprise Fire Arrow at some point could be something that could happen. Also can do like Sea Trolls, also can do the big nature stuff. So lots of summoning here more than anything else. Could put up Mother Oak pretty easily. Another thing that could be interesting, Mother Oak would allow us to spam Brood of Gom, which is a very, very nice summon. I'm not sold necessarily on either one of those. I'm kind of liking that Irminsul that I showed you that I put together, just because he's just so bloody cheap. He's just so bloody cheap. And we could actually improve him more if we didn't want to go Awake and instead we wanted to make him Dormant. We could probably make this guy pretty dang beefy. So regen, we need 1 more point. So that's just as cheap as it can get. Go full here, go full there. I want these to be relatively equal, with maybe that running ahead. Probably don't even need that. The order would be nice for blood hunting. 18 points left sucks. Not going to be able to afford another one there. I do hate that quite a bit. Yeah, and look, 39, so we can't get another scale. This also keeps us off of Cold 3. Well, I don't mind going to Cold 3. That is going to be pop killing some. I guess if we wanted to, we could do that. And if we did do that, I don't know, maybe a little fortune, a little something there. I don't know. That could be played around with a little bit more. The nature gems coming in for Broods of Garm, I do like. He's very cheap. This is more of a scales build. Sure, we'll leave Beard. Okay, very creative game. We could do either one of those if we are so inclined. In conclusion, Middle-Age Jotunheim, Very cool nation. I really enjoyed this one. I love nations who have good national spells that they can natively cast. That is always like high, high, high on my list. They have interesting units. I was shocked that their giant did not require 2 holy points, so pleasant surprise there. Having sacred wolves that we can summon in and some really cool frost goblins is really nice. The goblins feel really fresh and they're actually usable, so they're not just like a weird thing that we have for lore reasons and aren't particularly good. Overall, just a really fun nation. I'm curious to see what kind of blessings people can come up with. I think the regen, I really like the regen here. Regening 5 HP around makes these guys very hard to kill, but I could be sold on other things. I tested out frost weapons a lot. They are okay, but they're so bloody expensive for what they do. Yeah. You're not gonna have a ton of sacreds, even though we can summon in some wolves. Yeah. So I don't know. Let me know, builders, what you can come up with for other blesses. Maybe you can tempt me away. We may do a frost weapon guy. We may do one of those Irminsols. If nobody else can come up with something interesting, we shall see about that. Other than that, leave any other comments you have down below. Love to hear them. Love to see what other people know about nations. This is a really fun one. If you haven't played it, I strongly suggest it. Being able to summon in the giants from ages past is really cool and very powerful, so feels really good. The Illwinter spell, I mean, we got to do it, right? We got to do it. So maybe we'll make that the goal of the stream is to cast Illwinter before we win. That could be kind of a fun little side quest for us. All right, if you've enjoyed this one, don't forget to leave a like on your way out to share that with other people. If for some reason you're not already subscribed, I hope this is the video that I earned your subscription in. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see you join us in streams. Love sharing Dominions, you know. We are almost up to a year of doing this and we're going strong, and I'm going to keep going. We're going to do every nation. That's the goal. And if you'd like to go above and beyond, you could leave a super thanks on this video, or you could join us in one of the streams and do a super chat, or consider joining as a member. Members get early access to videos like this and other projects as they come around. Either way, always appreciated from the support, whether it's monetary or not. All right, builders, get out there and build yourself a snow fort, because it's going to get chilly out there. Babble out.